Africa should position to serve European demand for products and services and not to be locked out through trade barriers. The carbon border adjustment mechanism to be introduced by the EU should engage production from places such as Africa that could offer low embedded emissions produced using renewables. And number 3, to enhance innovative financing, the EU should access more high-quality African carbon credits, which offer core benefits such as biodiversity and improved livelihoods to be used in EU emission trading compliance markets. We need to work together to raise standards and avoid low-integrity carbon while realizing high prices for African countries and communities that are doing the difficult work of protecting nature and managing carbon. In Kenya, Parliament is finalizing the enactment of the carbon market regulations and activation plan, which should be in force in a few months. Aligning European concessional and multilateral capital to Africa's climate action agenda will not only generate economic growth and competitiveness, but also contribute to addressing the climate crisis for humanity. There is need to face down climate incompatible funding so as to free funds for climate action and lock much more concessional finance and low-risk development finance needed to be much more available, much more accessible, and much more affordable. As I do that, I hope you won't mind me reminding us that 138 years ago, a very different conference was taking place here in Berlin. One that also involved collaboration and cooperation, but of a more exclusive and violent nature. At that Berlin conference, it was a German chancellor who convened 14 of the world's leading powers to divide Africa among themselves and carve up our land and our people as they saw fit. In the years since that conference, so much has changed. We have seen the rise and fall of empires, the independence of African states, and the dawn of new challenges that demand a collective and collaborative response from all of us as we are gathered here in one such. Today, in Africa, we face multiple intertwined crises. We are the continent least responsible, but most vulnerable to climate change and its impacts. We are the continent with the least energy access, with over 600 million Africans still without access to energy. And of course, Africa still carries the scars of colonialism and economic and institutional dependencies that followed it. We will also be a critical partner to Europe in the supply of green hydrogen. Hydrogen produced using renewable energy can be exported to any part of the world, including Europe. Germany's green hydrogen strategies anticipate that the country will have to import 85% of its green hydrogen requirements by 2030. As Europe's green hydrogen demands support the development of reliable supply chains and rules-based international hydrogen markets, Kenya is a good investment partner to help decarbonize the German economy and green the EU manufacturing capacities. As Franz Timmermans said a few weeks ago, and I quote, "The continent of Africa is probably going to be the most important partner for Europe in terms of developing the renewable energy sector," end of quote. And Kenya is leading the way. We will be the continent's green energy hub. Our national grid is small, at just 3 gigawatts. Yet, 92% of the power on it comes from zero carbon sources like geothermal, hydro, wind, and solar. We aspire to reach 100% renewable in 2030 and to take a quantum leap to 100 gigawatts grid size and 100% renewable by 2040. That is possible thanks to our untapped potential of nearly 78 gigawatts of solar energy, over 57 gigawatts of wind energy, at least 10 gigawatts of geothermal energy, and 6 gigawatts of hydro. But the small grid size and relatively high energy costs have made it hard to attract energy-intensive industry to Kenya in the past. Yet energy-intensive anchor demand is exactly what is needed to make investment in additional renewable energy generation capacity bankable. Therefore, renewable energy generation capacity and industrial deployment need to be developed concurrently to overcome the current stalemate where each is waiting for the other to happen. This is a fundamental difference with European renewable energy development, where limitations may be available locations, maybe permits, and grid management, but you do not need to line up demand before you develop an investment case. The Berlin Energy Transition Dialogue provides a valuable platform to exchange ideas on how to address the two interlinked challenges we face, that is of climate and energy. Finally, I would like to announce to you that Kenya is hosting the first ever Africa Climate Action Summit in Nairobi from 4th to 6th September this year. The object of the summit is to rally the world to tackle climate challenges that the least emitting continent, and to more importantly tap the numerous opportunities that Africa presents towards global zero ambition. The summit will provide a unique platform to deliberate on the nexus between climate change and Africa's development reality, and the need to push for increased investment in climate action globally and specifically in Africa. I invite German and European companies and organizations to come and sample opportunities and ideas on Africa's contribution to solving this global climate challenge that poses existential threat to humanity. It has been proven that we can reduce emissions even as GDP grows, and Kenya and Africa are the best partners for this paradigm shift. If we want to have a real chance of addressing past and persistent inequalities, and if we want to have a real chance of breaking the cycle of dependence that have plagued Africa and the global South more broadly for decades, then we will need to rise to the challenge of genuine partnership. Partnerships for renewable energy developments across the continent that are people-centered, socially and environmentally sound. Moreover, in Africa lies 30 to 40% of the world's minerals, including those on which the green energy transition depends, and plentiful relevant natural resources and assets. Add all that to Africa being home to the world's youngest and most rapidly expanding workforce. 60% of Africans, for the record, are under the age of 25. And you start seeing, from where I stand, why we need a conversation about Africa. Access to international finance markets at very different rates, the brunt of monetary policy from advanced economies that pumped liquidity into their economies during the pandemic to protect their populations, currency depreciation, and expensive debt servicing all coupled with climate change impacts, continue to impede growth and investment in clean technologies. Africa can benefit from European, and in particular German experience in workforce development and reskilling. Kenya will require a significant investment in building capacity and skills in its young workforce, and Germany's success in developing a fit-for-purpose vocational training system provides a good model that Kenya can and is adopting, and while learning through other partnerships. In fact, the government of Kenya has succeeded over the past 8 years to increase the number of students in our TVETs from about 90,000 to the current 500,000 students. In Kenya, we are on track in driving a carbon-negative industrialization agenda. Investments into our country will be industry built on 100% renewable energy. Germany, a prolific exporter of industrial manufacturing capacity, including into Kenya, should establish Kenya as a key industrial hub for German manufacturers as they transition to a new era.